We're at Mr. Bill's machine shop. Mr. Bill Bufka, longtime machinist. Just hanging out with him before the Bigfoot open house. Came to show us his brass ring fabs, Mike Bufka's RC operation he's got going here. So, but Chris, you had a question?
I do. So tell us, what was probably one of your coolest things that you had to machine for Bigfoot?
Well, that's kind of up in the air. I did so many different things for Bigfoot. One of the biggest advances we did was when we did the front and rear engine plates for number 10. Because when number 10 was first built, it was the tube frame rear engine truck that was the first one for Bigfoot's fleet. They had the side motor mounts on it, and when it would do a hard landing, it kept bending the side tubes of the frame, and the motor was settling down each time, and we were getting quite a bit of misalignment. So between myself and Gary Saline, who was our engine man, and he was a professional truck puller, they always used front and rear engine plates. So he decided that it's probably the best thing for it to hold the engine in place and keep it where it is. So we had to basically reverse engineer a truck that was ready, up and running, and go from side engine mounts to front and rear engine plates. So it was a lot of work, a lot of cutting, a lot of machining, a lot of fitting. But once it worked, then every truck after that got front and rear engine plates. And it actually made it a lot nicer for changing engines, because you just take the blower assembly off and bolt the transmission off and bolt the mounts for the side plates, lift the whole cradle and everything out. So then when you want to put it back in, you just let it sit, and it had little cutouts for the frame, and just sit right in place, put the bolts back in, boom, you're done. So it made changing engines a lot nicer.
I bet.
Wow. Thank you.
And you were just telling me about another innovation that you were.
Well, and that was my idea. Dan Runty said that when they're at races, a lot of times, if they fry a transmission, it took two guys, a fair amount of time in between rounds to change out a hot transmission. And he wanted to know if there was any way we could make it any easier. So I stared at the truck for a while, and I had this idea of they were using a come along, which it worked, but
use what you had.
Yeah, it's time consuming and it's dangerous. And so he said, can you come up with something else? So I started staring at it, and I knew that Warren Winches was one of our sponsors. So I talked to Ron Magruder about it to see if he could get me the smallest ATV winch that Warren offered. And he said, no, he says, we don't want that kind of liability. So I thought there's got to be a way of utilizing that. So I went to Bob about it, and I told Bob what I wanted to do. And I had kind of a rough sketch of what I had in mind. And he says, we'll get you one. So he got me the little winch motor and the controller and everything, and I just started machining pieces, and I welded on a couple of tabs in the back of the cab so that you get the thing off the hauler door, you stick it up, drop it down in the hole, plug in the electrical for the motor and the controller, and boom, up and down. And it would pivot in, you'd hook it up to the transmission, raise it up, pivot it out. You didn't even have to take the side panel off, the bedside. Drop it right down, unhook it, slide another transmission there, hook it up, pivot it in, drop it right down in place, slide it on the dowel pins, put all the bolts in it, take the winch off, put it back in the door of the hauler, and you're done. So
Yeah,
it was a big step forward. Everybody seemed to like it. I think you saw that in action.
Yeah, if you can explain to these guys what you would come to on a Monday morning, or even sometimes a Sunday morning.
Well, yeah, a lot of times
bring in carnage.
Right. Well, I'd come to work on a Monday morning, and when we'd see a couple of haulers out in the front parking lot bright and early on a Monday morning, that was not a good sign. And it wasn't just because the drivers came back from out of town and they were tired and they wanted to go back to their apartment or whatever. It usually meant that there was some repair work to be done. So a lot of times they'd open up the hauler, or we'd open up the hauler, and they'd go, oh yeah, get out the big fork truck and pull them out and drag them around the side of the building and power wash them first, and then drag them in the building and start working until Thursday afternoon when they arrived and loaded them back up and went out again.
Yeah, because I was telling a story earlier about when I brought 4 back from Pontiac. Basically, everything from the bottom of the frame off had to be cut off and replaced.
Right.
And I called Kramer from Pontiac, and by the time I got back Sunday, Roy had already had cut out all the pieces, and I mean, like Tuesday, I was back on the road.
Yep.
Wow.
So we'd had to do a lot of fast turnarounds when they brought wreck trucks back. So that was your typical Monday morning. It was thrash all week, and once the guys loaded them up and left, then we could finally relax a little bit. But it was pretty much rinse and repeat every week. So it was just part of life up there. I mean, that's what you did. That's what they paid you to do. So,
Right. Cool.
But got to do a lot of neat things, and then the crank trigger ignition that Gary and I worked on, the Shardy distributor and all of that for MSD. MSD liked it so much that they went ahead and manufactured it and put it in their catalog. So a lot of guys with blown big block Fords got the benefit of that technology, but it was something that we pioneered at Bigfoot that wasn't there, but we needed it.
Awesome.
It was really a neat time to work there because we got to innovate a lot of interesting things that a lot of other guys copied, and that was Bob's driving force. He wanted to be the innovator, and he came up with some pretty neat ideas, but we had to make it work. So it was interesting, very, very interesting time. I was glad I was able to be a part of it in the 90s because they were accomplishing a lot, and that was real racing back then. That was neat stuff. So, yes.
What was your favorite truck to work on?
Well, that's
They all pretty much the same.
yeah. All of them were interesting. Actually, when I hired on up there, my first project was Bigfoot 11, which ended up being Wildfoot, and it struck the nerve of a lot of people when it was Wildfoot with Andy driving it, and it was pretty wild. And he accomplished a lot. But I started on 11, got it pretty much done. Then we built 12 as a display truck for Ron Bachman, and that was really neat building that truck. And then 14, though, that was the neat truck for Dan. We built 14 and innovated a lot of new things in it, and right out of the shop, it was a great truck, and he ended up winning with that everywhere he went. So 14 was probably the most successful truck right out of the shop. It just really did good. And then Bob says, well, that one worked out real good. Let's build 15. So we built 15, but somebody changed a couple of things, so it wasn't exactly like 14, and it had some issues. I know Eric Meager had a kind of a tough time with it for a while till they got it all sorted out, but I'd have to say 14 was probably the most perfect truck that we were able to build from scratch. It worked out real well. But that was an interesting time, and I got to be part of when we converted Bigfoot 7 into the 10-foot tall tire truck along with number 5. That was interesting. So we got to do a lot of interesting things. It was a good time. I really enjoyed it. So
How long of a process was that stripping 7 to turn it into the?
it wasn't all that bad, and we gutted the truck because 7 when it was done did not run at all. It didn't have any drivetrain in it, no wiring, no plumbing. It's basically a static display truck.
Right.
So, and it's just a shame that it's pretty much languishing down there at Big Fun Amusement Park down in Florida. It's really a shame, and they won't part with it. But if somebody wanted to make it a running truck, they'd have to do a lot of work because everything is missing. All the guts are gone. It's just a display. It's a shame.
Yeah, I know a lot of people try to rescue it and are unsuccessful.
Yeah, well, just like 6. I don't think 6 is ever going to come back.
Well, we never thought it would turn up, and then it got found.
It turned up, but I don't know that.
There's always hope, I guess. You know?
You can always hope. I enjoyed the Bigfoot shuttle. That was a fun one to drive, and I used that in parades and stuff like that. That was a fun vehicle. It was a fun vehicle to learn how to go over cars and 4-wheel steer. That was.
I get the feeling you might see that one again really soon.
I sure hope so. I'd like to see it again.
So what year did you officially start at Bigfoot?
90. It was late 91.
Late 91.
Yep, until 97. So it was a fun time though.
How did it all come about? You going to work?
Well, I was actually working for Bristol Myers here in St. Louis, big pharmaceutical company, and they decided to close the plant that I was working at. And it was a great job with great pay and benefits, but they decided to close this plant because it was an old plant and move everything down to Morrisville, North Carolina. And I actually worked down there for 6 weeks installing all of our packaging line equipment down there, but I didn't want to move. So at the end of the 6 weeks, I got a nice severance package and benefits and everything. So I left them and finished with them on a Friday and started with Bigfoot on a Monday.
Wow.
And then I worked there, like I said, till late 97. And then a friend of mine had been hounding me for a lot of years to come work at his shop because I'd known him a long time, and he hounded me for about 3 years. So I went to work at Mastercraft Aerospace, and that was neat. Did a lot of prototype fighter jet parts for Boeing, and actually made some parts for the International Space Station. That was neat. So I get to see it go overhead once in a while. That was enjoyable. But I did that till 2016 when I retired from that, and then been working for a friend of mine ever since, taking care of his car collection. So that's been keeping me pretty busy. Between that and taking on odd jobs and helping Mike out once in a while with some hard to machine parts and things like that. Yeah. So
I guess elaborate off that question a little bit. What got you into Bigfoot? Who was the person you talked to? Did you have a relationship with anybody
Jim
before?
Steinketter, who was working at Bigfoot at the time. I had known Jim since high school, and when we were in high school, he went to different high school, but he was working in a local speed shop in St. Louis. So we got to know each other then, and then so I approached him about, if there's any job opening up there, and he says, well, as a matter of fact, we've never had a full-time machinist. They had a mill and a lathe in there, and the guys up there just kind of dabbled with it, but they didn't really know about its potential. So I said, well, I've been doing this for quite a few years already. So they hired me, and then that's how it went. So, but I got to go out on the road and do some display work for Bigfoot. That was kind of neat. And I got to drive Bigfoot 3, the ride truck. I got to do that on quite a few occasions as a fill-in driver. So that was really neat. It was just really a good time.
It was probably some of the best years of Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think so.
Where everything had to be, we were the engineers of it. It's
Right,
not
right.
like now you can just make phone
And
call
it was
have a truck built.
It was a great crew. Working with Roy and Jay Diekman. Oh my gosh, Jay.
All good guys, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And being with Andy and Gene and Kenny. Oh my God, Kenny. Yeah, Ken Kelling. Yeah, he's something else. It was a fun crew. It really was. But we got a lot of work done. Everybody had their own specialty, and we did it.
Come time to get stuff done, you guys all.
Yeah. We all, it's all hands on deck. But this is great. So if any of you have any other questions, feel free to ask. And I do have a couple of nice photo albums I'm going to bring along tomorrow to the bash. Yeah. You saw some of the pictures last year that were in the boxes. Well, Fred Reap went ahead and put that box into a photo album. I know Jeremy was looking at them when he arrived earlier. And so there's a lot of pictures in there that have never been out on Facebook, and a lot of people have never seen.
Yep.
So
after this weekend.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they'll stay in the photo album.
Yeah.
But just enjoy them. There's a lot of Bigfoot history. A lot of pictures of Mike when he was little.
Yes.
I think there's even a picture of you wearing jeans. Who? Cobra's mask.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll edit that. I'll edit that part out of the video.
But anyway, yeah, got a lot of early pictures. So
That's
Cool deal.
That when pictures like that show up,
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's fresh meat out on the internet to see.
and especially the pictures of the 2 Star Wars haulers. That a lot of people didn't know that there were 2 of them, and I got pictures of them both together in the parking lot. And that was another whole story in itself. Dan Patterson.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What a painter. Well, you know what I'm talking
yes,
about,
I
Brian.
do.
You walk in the paint room and he's in there having a full-fledged conversation with himself,
Yes.
arguing, cussing, throwing stuff, and there's nobody else in the room.
Yeah.
You just turn and walk away.
But he's coming with some pretty cool stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he was.
It was cool when Bob finally let him to have free reign.
Yeah,
I
he.
know for the longest time he was being very conservative on how we did stuff because
Right,
of sponsors and
Things.
once Bob started letting him
Oh my
let
gosh,
his artistic juices flow.
he created
Pretty
some
wild.
stuff. Yeah.
I've got a couple cool helmets at home that are
Yeah,
he painted.
yeah.
So.
So anyway, yeah, but it was fun time. That's
Cool.
why I enjoyed going back every year for the open house.
Right.
And seeing these old trucks coming back, like the Ranger, boy, that brought back a lot of memories. And then thank you, Chris, for posting on my birthday the picture of me sitting in your truck. That was so cool. That was quite a surprise. But seeing the Ranger come back looking so beautiful, because it was an important piece of Bigfoot history.
Well, we were both there at the same time when it left. And
Yeah.
that was always my favorite truck back when Ken Kelling sent it into outer space at Marion County Fairgrounds. And then when that thing left there, I mean, I almost cried.
That hurt to take it
Yes.
apart.
Yeah.
That really did. That hurt
Well,
to take it apart.
Chris paid the bills, but Heath Paget
Yeah,
did the restoration.
yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful what you did. The truck is just so amazing.
Well, thanks for talking to us,
Hey,
Mr. Bill.
it was really an honor. Thank you so much. It's so neat to have all of you here. I mean, this was, I think there's about twice as many people here as we were expecting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.